Okay, so as I had mentioned before, I wanted it to do a concept where we're taking a PlayStation 5 controller and then also taking the particles and reusing this Alembic mesh to do a, you know, cool PlayStation 5 thematic concept. I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyway, I got to a point where, I feel like this is somewhat presentable. It's not done, but I want to take it further after creating this video, but I feel like we can talk about it now. So this is where it's at right now. I'm gonna start over and show you guys how I got to this point. So we're gonna revert back to the scene that we had previously in the other video where it was kind of like that earthy tone color. So let's go back to that scene and launch it here. So again, if you guys remember, we had this scene. We have multiple shots. We created an additional shot. I didn't save it, but as you guys remember, you can check out the other video. We created an additional fourth shot. So I'm gonna resave this file, and we're gonna name it. Let's see, save as, and I'm just gonna call it. Let's just do a version 2 of that PlayStation 5, PS5. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then, so what I did from here, all I started to do was turn the particles, the material black. So let's see what happens if I take the saturation out of it. So we'll go here, desaturates, and as you can see, it's white, and we're just gonna start making it black. I'm gonna go like 0.01. I don't like to ever go complete black. There should always be a little bit of luminance in your black colors. You should never go black or completely white, if you guys didn't know that. Okay, so now I've created, a black material. We're starting to get that look. Now I also want to add a blue color, right? So what I had to do from here was create an additional material, and I want to add it on those very small particles, the sandy particles. So let's see if we can find them. So actually it's not even loading in the shot. So sometimes your Alembic mesh will not load and you have to just reload it. So I can go here and let's find it. Go here, export, and reload it in. Okay, so there's the sandy particles. So I want to make these particles blue. So I'm just going to give it a blue color for now. I'm going to copy this material. Let's make a new material, and then let's change the color, and we'll go here and turn the value up, make this blue, and as you can see, it's not showing up. Okay, so what we have to go and do is create another copy of our geometry node, because if you remember, I had to add the material through the geometry node. So I'm going to just copy this geometry node, and then I'm going to select the blue particles. And as you can see now, we got a blue color. Okay. So what I also did now from here was I made it emissive. So I took the color of the particle and I copied the hex color here. So I'm just going to simply copy by doing Control C. And then I'm going to change this back to black, tearing the value all the way down this time because I just want it completely emissive. And I'm going to go down to emission and then paste this color in. So now I'm going to turn up the strength. So if I go to 1, so now we have an emissive particle. So if I turn it up to like 16, right, now we get a very emissive look. So like even in the bokehs, we're just getting that blue color because it's being spread out. But as we get closer into focus, that color becomes more white because it's so bright. So let me turn it down to like 8 for now. Maybe 4. Let's try 4. Okay. So cool. Now we're at a good point. So let's bring back in our other particles and see how it all overlaps. So this is really, really cool. See, look at this. We're getting this cool pattern now. And so now I'm going to bring in the PlayStation 5 controller, and I'll bring that in. And let's see, I'm going to actually link it in this time. So I have a PlayStation 5 controller, and we'll just link it in. And what that does is it doesn't bring in the object to where I can make it editable. It brings it in so that it's just linked in. So we'll switch back to my 3D viewport. I'm just going to raise it up. Okay. And so now we got the PlayStation 5 controller. So what I want to do here now is I need to also do some lighting. I need to do some focusing on the controller. All right, so moving on to the lighting, what we have to do, since we now have the controller, we need to be able to control lighting for each of these elements separately. So I want to light the controller separately from the particles. We've already lit the particles in our previous scene, so I'm going to continue using that lighting, and then we're going to use what we call light linking. It's new in Blender 4.0, which is great. And so what I'm going to do here is start organizing my scene a little bit so that we can now place these elements into their own collections, and then we can take advantage of using light linking. So I'm going to select all the vortex pieces, make a new collection. Matter of fact, let me delete all these layers. All these layers are just part of my default files, how I kind of usually start projects off. It's a system I've been using for years. So I'm going to delete that and then take this out of this folder. Matter of fact, I'll leave it here and I can just rename it. So we just call it PS5 controller. And then I'm going to take the vortex. I'm going to place everything in a new collection and call that just vortex simply. Got that there. And then delete this trash layer. And then we got that. And then don't need the headphones anymore. Just cleaning things up here. All right. And then I think that's it. I'll just place the background in the vortex also, just so that it's clean. And we got our lights here. Okay, so now I can go to my light, and then I'm going to go to the object tab, and then I'm going to go down to shading, light linking, and then hit new. And then I can just drag my vortex into this box. So now you'll see that the controller goes black. That's because that controller is no longer being affected by that light. Okay. So now if I make a new light, I'm just going to right click. I have an add-on for my lights. It's a really cool add-on. And I'm just going to hit add light. So I'm going to start dragging it around across the controller, and it's just placing my light at different angles as I'm dragging it across the controller. So I'm just going to go dead center. I'm going to press 2 so that I can just start rotating my light around. And then I'm just going to place my light right here for now because I want to set up my light linking again. So for this light, I'm going to call it light controller. And then I'm going to call this light vortex. And then we're going to go back to this light and do another light linking. So I'm going to take the PS5 and drag this in here. So now we got the PS5 controller lit separately and the vortex lit separately. So I'm going to fix one more thing, and then I'm going to go back to getting my lighting right. And we're going to mess with the camera lens. So now that we have this controller in, we need to make sure it's placed. I'm going to actually just leave it at this placement for now. But I'm going to bring my focus point up to the controller. So all I have to do now is take that focus point, make sure I have it selected. There it is. And I'm going to drag it up to the center of the controller. So right about there, maybe bring it down just a tad. Right about there. So as you can see, the controller is not fully in focus. That's because we have a very, very shallow depth of field. So I'm going to change that depth of field, the f-stop to like 2.8 and see what we get. Okay. So let's try 4. Okay. So as you can see, like things are starting to come into more focus. Let's go something crazy like 0.5. You can see the difference. So like 0.5, you know, very, very shallow. That doesn't even exist in the real world. So I'll try 4 again. I like 4. So we're still getting some depth of field, some bokehs from the particles, and then also keeping the controller in focus. So I'm going to take this focus point, maybe move it down just a tad more so we can get the whole controller in focus. So the way depth of field works is like you got the foreground and the background. So like there's a focus plane right here, and then there's a focus plane on the backside also. So you just want to fit everything within that focus plane to get the product in focus. So one thing I'm noticing on the material of this controller is that it's very glossy. I need to look up some more references, but as I had mentioned earlier, this controller is linked in. So I also have another Blender add-on to where I can jump back and forth from my linked objects and back to my original scene. So if I hit this button here, and it'll take me right to my controller, and I can make edits to it right here in its scene. So this is the scene that the controller sits in, and then it gets linked in to my final scene where we're building the controller. And this is just a smart way to work to keep like your file from getting too big. If you're not going to change the controller and it's just going to stay one way, you just need to rotate it. You're not doing anything crazy where the controller is going to explode or something like that. Then I can just link it in. It's a better option. Okay, so let's go to my shading tab. Hopefully I can just quickly edit the glossiness of this controller, because right now it's just too shiny in the white areas. So let's see where I can find this. I think it's here at the slot 1. Make sure. Try turning this red or something. Okay, so that's it. So we'll change this back to white. Turn this back up to 0.8. Turn the saturation down. Plug the map back in. And then I'm going to take... So it's tricky because I would have to go in and probably edit the actual texture map. So let me just take this down. See what happens. And maybe flip. No, we're going to take the blacks and raise them. So I'll just do this for now as a quick solution. I might have to edit them in Photoshop separately later, but this is a quick solution just to remove that glossiness of the controller. So I'm going to just go back to my layout tab and then hit return to original file. It's going to auto save it, and then it should not be so glossy anymore when I render now. So now it's a little bit more in the middle, and I removed that hard glossy reflection. Okay, so going back to my light, I'm gonna select my light here. I'm gonna press tab as a shortcut. Again, this is just a Blender add-on I'm using to get these options. You can do this manually too. And then I'm gonna start rotating my light to find something that I like for this shot. So I like to do something more where I can see my shadows. I love to see shadow casting. And so I'm gonna bring this light in closer and increase the size. So if I hold Alt and start dragging my wheel, I'm going to start bringing my light in closer and closer. So right now it's pretty close. Back it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to increase the size of it also. So now hold Shift and then drag up because I'm increasing the size. So my shadows gets pretty soft. And then I'm going to also affect the spread of my light. If I drag down, the spread is hard. And if I drag up, get a nice spread on my light. And then I'm going to go with that. Let me just try moving just a little bit more. See what I get. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I want to get some more reflection from the particles onto my controller. So I'm just going to try increasing the brightness of the emission on the particles. So let's go something crazy like 16 and see what we get. So that's pretty cool. I like that look where I'm getting cast of light from the particles. So we're getting a little bit of that. Now what I'm going to do for this shot, I'm going to add a bounce card in. So we're going to add a simple plane. I'm going to make a simple material, call it bounce card so that it's white. Make sure it just has a matte finish to it. And then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, drag it up, move it back. Oh, come on, work. Let's move that out the way. And then move it back also out of the shot. So now that So this card is actually not working. I should see some bounce light casting on here. The reason being is because we're using light linking, right? So this collection is the only thing that's being affected by the light. So I need to drag this plane into this box or into the collection. And then now you'll see that we're getting some bounce light back into the scene. So let me drag this back some more. So that's out of frame. And then I just want to control the amount of light that's bouncing on that side, on that left side of the controller. So as you can see, as I bring it closer, it gets brighter. As I bring it back, it gets darker. So I just wanted something like mid-tone right about there. Okay. And then also I want to try adding another bounce card because I want to get some highlight in this area. So we need to pay attention to that area because that's pretty important, being that this is a product shot. So I'm just going to duplicate it, rotate 90 degrees, and see how this looks. Okay, so we're not really getting anything out of this. So I'm probably going to have to add a speck light. So I'm just going to add a point light into the shot. So we're going to go here, point light, and then where is it at? So we're just going to drag it up. As you can see, now we're getting some speck highlights from the point light because we're just using a point highlight to create a nice highlight on the top of this controller. So I'm going to drag it up here, and then like right about there is good. And so now I'm just going to turn it black, and then I'm going to just slowly bring it back into the shot. Okay, so that's too much. We're going to turn it back down. Back down. Don't need a lot, just need a little bit just to create a cool, nice little highlight onto the controller itself. So what I'm wondering now, I'm going to try this. Never tried this before, but I'm wondering if I could just create a, no, I can't do that because it's just this collection. So this is a problem that I'm dealing with right now where I have to figure out, okay, how can I highlight just this area and not the rest of the controller, being that it's linked in to the shot into this file, right? Again, this is a linked file. I cannot just go in and light that piece separately. So let me just try playing with this light some more. And what I'm thinking is that I'm gonna have to use an area light instead. So let's change this to an area light. And then I'm gonna take it and make the size of it really small, and then take the spread and turn it all the way down so I can see exactly where this light is affecting the controller. So if I drag it right on top, we just get a square because we turn the spread down to 0, right? We're not spreading the light out. It's not fanning out. It's just almost like a laser. You can think of this as a laser. If I was to take this light and shoot it through like a fog volume, you would just see a straight line like a laser. It's focused light. So I'm going to take this, drag it up, and put it right here in this corner. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Pull it up. Let's see. Something like that. That's cool. And then I'm going to probably even make it even smaller again. And then I'm going to start adding some spread back in. So I'm going to start spreading it out. So I just want to hit this area. So I just want to soften this corner. So I'm going to drag it off controller some more. So I'm just trying to hit this corner. All I need. And then maybe just a little bit more spread. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now we're going to take the power of the light and then just increase it just a tad bit. Bring it down. Just like that. Okay. So now I got to kind of match the angle of light to what I have here. So I'm going to take this and move it to the right and then point it back toward the controller so you can see how it kind of brushes across. Then go to my top view, bring it back a little bit. But now we're getting somewhere. And then go back to my front view again, rotate it up a little bit more. And then I'm also going to play with the spread. So I'm going to bring the spread back down again. Okay, so now it's contained just in that black area of the controller, like this. And then rotate it down just a tad. Bring it down some more on the top view. Okay. Okay, well, so now we're getting somewhere. It's not exactly what I want in terms of finished product. I would take a lot more time to massage this image to get it somewhere. You know, I could play with the particles some more. So like maybe instead of using black particles, maybe let's try changing them white. So what would that look like? So let's try that actually real quick before we stop. So maybe have a theme where we're using white particles, right? Because the controller's white. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's different. And maybe turn down this light here. And then look how the light's just casting on all the particles to the emission. It's so cool. And then let's turn down or turn up the light on the controller. Let's bring the brightness of that because this is the product. We want to bring focus to that. And then, so like 64. And then let's go back here on the back. Let me turn this off just to see what it looks like with it off. Okay, that's what's happening. So we need to do some light linking again. This, and then new, and then we just want the controller. Cool, so now I got rid of that hotspot that was here. All right, so this is looking pretty good. I like this. This is coming out pretty well. So we just took that old scene, repurposed it to make a product shot with the PlayStation 5 controller. And we're getting somewhere really cool with it. So this is how you can just start, you know, experimenting, concepting, you know, and then start to bring in elements to see how they look. And then you kind of take the design of the element and implement it into your abstract piece that you just made, you know, prior. So that's what I did. I just took the elements of this controller. I sampled the blue, knowing that this controller is white, you know, changed it to white, started off with black, but I'm liking this white theme a lot better. And you just want to kind of just bounce the ideas around that are going through your head. Again, it's like you constantly make new decisions as you're developing your scene, you know? So you just, you know, there's an old saying, like there's happy mistakes where you come to a conclusion on developing different images. So like, again, this is a simulation again. So I can scrub through this, right? And maybe that's a better shot, right? And so I could say, well, I like this circle. Let me bring the controller down and let me take my light too. So let me take the controller and my light and just shift it down just a tad bit so that I'm getting it kind of centered like that. And then maybe move it to the left just a tad bit too. And so again, scrubbing through here, right? Let's go to the beginning and see what this looks like. So that's cool. So like we don't even see the emitted particles emitting right now because they're underneath. And then as soon as it starts to move, look at that. That is so cool. So I could just render this whole animation out as something too. Look at that. So I can make this a whole animation now, a product animation. So I could just simply take this controller now and like add some simple keyframes. So I could say, okay, well, let me take this controller and start it down here out of, well, it's still getting light, but you know, let's just concept it out real quick. So I could take this, right? Starting on frame 1, that's when the particles show up. So I can start here, have the controller black, and then I can say, okay, we'll add a keyframe, and then I could go scrub through. And then by the time this opens up, the controller, say that the controller can just come right here into frame, and then keyframe it again right there. So now the controller is animated. So I can have it rotate and stuff too. I can do some other stuff, right? So I can make this into a whole product animation. So if I have time, maybe I'll render this into a product animation too, you know. But this is a really, really cool concept that's developing. So maybe I'll render this as an animation. I can maybe probably take this even further where I create a couple shots. Remember, we have some other shots too that I can develop on, create this whole animation. Obviously, we still got these headphones. We're not using these anymore. So I can add in a controller. Maybe I could just keep it white here and not use the emitted particles. Maybe I can. You know, here's the third shot that I have. Again, we're not using these headphones. I would have to add the emitted particles again. And then our original shot. So I could probably develop this into a multi-shot animation. I could keep it in Blender. Maybe I could rough out the animation in Blender, the shots or the cuts. But I'm thinking that I could render this out as an animation and then comp it in Natron, if you guys are familiar with it. I kind of like to use external programs. I come from a background where I use 3D Studio Max for years, and then you know, render stuff out, comp it into another program like Fusion, After Effects. I do like Blender's platform to do compositing, but I'm just kind of a little bit old school, and I like Natron. It trains me to use Nuke because it's very similar to Nuke, and that's, you know, one of those industry standard programs. So Natron is a open source compositing program. If you guys have not used it, it's node based. It's very, very, very similar to Nuke. If you guys, you know, out there want to learn Nuke and add that to your arsenal. So it's a very powerful program to take advantage of your render passes using multi-pass EXRs. That's how I have my template set up. It's always set to render EXR images, and my render passes are already set up to by default when my file starts. See where it's at. So yeah, I have all my passes already ready to go. Every time I start a new file, it's ready to go, and I can just render the whole system that I have. Maybe I can walk you guys through that at some point. But anyhow, going back to this controller, it's a cool concept. Hope you guys learned something from this. More videos coming soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.